Obadiah. The vision of Obadiah. This is what the sovereign Lord Jehovah has said regarding Edom. There is a report that we have heard from Jehovah, and there is an envoy that has been sent among the nations. Rise up, you people, and let us rise up against her in battle. Look, small is what I have made you among the nations. You are despised very much. The presumptuousness of your heart is what has deceived you. You who are residing in the retreats of the crag, the height where he dwells, saying in his heart, "Who will bring me down to the earth?" If you should make your position high like the eagle, or if among the stars there were a placing of your nest, down from there I would bring you, is the utterance of Jehovah. If it were thieves that came into you, if despoilers came in by night, to what extent would you have been silenced? Would they not steal as much as they wanted? Or if it were grape-gatherers that came into you, would they not let some gleanings remain? Oh, the extent to which those of Esau have been searched out! How his concealed treasures have been sought out! As far as the boundary they have sent you. The very men in covenant with you have all deceived you. The men at peace with you have prevailed against you. Those eating food with you will place a net under you as one in whom there is no discernment. Will it not be in that day, is the utterance of Jehovah? And I shall certainly destroy the wise ones out of Edom, and discernment out of the mountainous region of Esau. And your mighty men must become terrified, O Teman, for the reason that each one will be cut off from the mountainous region of Esau because of a killing. Because of the violence to your brother Jacob, shame will cover you, and you will have to be cut off to time indefinite. In the day when you stood off on the side, in the day when strangers took his military force into captivity, and when outright foreigners entered his gate, and over Jerusalem they cast lots. You also were like one of them. And you ought not to watch the sight in the day of your brother, in the day of his misfortune, and you ought not to rejoice at the sons of Judah in the day of their perishing, and you ought not to maintain a big mouth in the day of their distress. You ought not to come into the gate of my people in the day of their disaster. You, even you, ought not to peer at his calamity in the day of his disaster, and you ought not to thrust out a hand upon his wealth in the day of his disaster. And you ought not to stand at the parting of the ways in order to cut off his escapees, and you ought not to hand over his survivors in the day of distress. For the day of Jehovah against all the nations is near. In the way that you have done, it will be done to you. Your sort of treatment will return upon your own head. For in the way that you people have drunk upon my holy mountain, all the nations will keep drinking constantly. And they will certainly drink and gulp down and become as though they had never happened to be. And in Mount Zion is where those escaping will prove to be, and it must become something holy, and the house of Jacob must take possession of the things for them to possess. And the house of Jacob must become a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau a stubble, and they must set them ablaze and devour them. And there will prove to be no survivor to the house of Esau, for Jehovah himself has spoken it. And they must take possession of the Negeb, even of the mountainous region of Esau, and of the Shephelah, even of the Philistines. And they must take possession of the field of Ephraim, and of the field of Samaria, and Benjamin must take possession of Gilead. And as for the exiles of this rampart, to the sons of Israel will belong what the Canaanites possessed, as far as Zarephath, and the exiles of Jerusalem, who were in Sepharad, will take possession of the cities of the Negeb. And saviors will certainly come up onto Mount Zion, in order to judge the mountainous region of Esau, and the kingship must become Jehovah's.